Alright, so we're ready to take a look at the user interface here and just get a quick look at all of the sections here before we jump into detail of each. Just so we have that first broad look to get ourselves started. You will note that you can see pretty much everything you need to see right on the main panel here, and there's generally not a need to dig further than this. But let's just start at the very top and go through all of these different controls and options. We saw the system drop down where we could open preferences, and as we set up, this is where we get our audio device and the outputs, sample rates, buffer size, and the MIDI input controllers that you want to use as well. Below that, we have our saving and loading of presets that we can control. We can click in here to open up the program browser, where you can do different sorting to pick from the different banks available for all the different presets. There's a few different ways to sort through all of them, as well as just browse through and find different ones. Available, and then you can save user presets or save over those user presets. You won't be able to save over the factory ones, which is nice. But as I said, we'll look a little bit more in detail there. Over on the right side, we have another list of options that we can open up. We can copy the programs and paste them, import a program or bank, load or save controller maps, which clicking the show controller assign, you see the MIDI CC number assigned to each of these controls. And you can right click to change that control CC to another one, or you can also learn just by clicking here and then turning the control on your controller to link it to that parameter, but setting back to hide the controller assign again. You can then save that controller map or make your current controller settings default. There are options to import the version 1 banks if you have used the older Core Legacy Collection version of this, and the screen size, of course, as we edited. We have it large. You can make it whatever size you need, and then at the bottom there's the About, where you can get your version information if you need to look there. Then there's a gear button here to open some more settings. Your external modulation control sources are set here. Those will come into play down in the external section, and they're just MIDI controls that you input. You can change the polarity and the CC number that's going to play as that source. Then you can filter off different MIDI, the control change, program change, and aftertouch if you want those enabled or disabled. Then you can change your tuning, the master tuning, the scale for temperaments, as well as the key that you can offset, and then for each key you can also detune different notes, but generally speaking you won't typically have to do too much editing in regards to those. Now looking at our main synthesizer panel here, we have all of the different sections that we're going to work with. We have one VCO, or voltage controlled oscillator, so that's our initial sound that's going to be generated and sent into the voltage controlled filter, or VCF, a low pass filter that you can edit the cutoff and work with different envelopes, etc. Then that goes to your VCA, which also can run by envelope or gate modes. You have control generators, your modulation controller, or LFO, the low frequency oscillator, which can link to different places, just like the envelope generator, which is just one shot of a modulation. You can change your output, volume, and pan. Then you have the arpeggiator that can make sequences of notes out of chords, your effects that you can put on. As in the original instrument, this little module can apply those original built-in effects. You then have pitch that you can bend with the wheel or transpose, as well as just detune, so the coarse or fine adjustment of pitch there. Below those, we have our external modulation, which, as we said, those are set for the MIDI to control different parameters that we will set up. Then some additional effects that can be added in of different types, each of which with different uses, of course, but high quality effects that you can add to what the original instrument would have been able to do. It gives you effectively a list of those standard sort of effects that you can add to the dry output sound. Finally, down here, you set your polyphony and voice allocation, unison, and the different ways that your keys will be assigned to different voices as you play them. And you'll be able to see that, of course, on the keyboard down here, or click and play those, as well as use the bend and modulation wheels if your keyboard controller has them. And as a brief look, that's pretty much what you're working with, which of course isn't really too complex, which is nice, so you can dig in and jump through each of these sections or modules as they pertain to your sound. And it's all on the table here to easily access. As far as interfacing with each knob, it's just a matter of clicking and dragging. You can see, of course, the value and the name of each of these parameters detailed a little bit further as you hover over different ones. So clicking and dragging up and down to change it, holding Control or Command and clicking will set it back to default value. Holding Shift and dragging will fine-tune the parameter change so it moves at a slower rate so you can find specific values a little more easily. And then holding Alt and clicking, you can go to different values around the knob just by clicking in that direction. And for buttons, of course, you just click them to toggle them and click and drag on switches to change those. So nothing too out of the ordinary as far as working and adjusting these parameters. At this point, though, we're going to start jumping into the specifics of each of these sections and what each of the controls within them will do. And we'll start with the VCO, or voltage controlled oscillator, in the next video. So I will see you then.